All right, let's pick up where we left off. Now, the only other thing that I need you to understand is there's only one thing that is going to cause our symbol to be reversed. And for me, now it says if we multiply or divide by a negative number, then we should reverse the inequality symbol. The very last step in solving any linear equation, if at all, is to divide. And if you happen to divide by a negative number, that reverses our inequality symbol. And you're going to get to see that in some of these examples, and I'll point it out when we get there. But I do want you to understand that the way that I solve, usually it's typically dividing, but it can be multiply or divide. Now, when you're solving these, they should look very similar to what we did in our linear equations section, and it is. We're going to solve and then write the answer in interval notation after we graph it. And like I said, I kind of do things a little bit differently, but you do what your instructor shows you how to do, and this is for my students, and it works as well, so hopefully it'll help you as well. All right, here we want to get the x all by itself, and if this were just a regular equation like we've already learned to solve, we would start by moving the 9 over to the other side. When it crosses over that inequality, it's going to change to the opposite sign. So we have x, our symbol, and 4 minus 9, which combine to make -5. To do the number line, the only number I'm interested in is -5. With the -5, I know that there's a closed inequality touching him, so I'm going to put in a solid circle. And because I got the x on the left-hand side, I know that this tells me to go to the right, or you can read it. X is greater than or equal to -5. Well, greater than -5 also tells me to move to the right. Now you read the inequality of the number line from left to right the way you read English. The shape -5 and goes all the way to infinity. That's what we want. That's the solution. Infinities always get parentheses, and this solid circle will translate into a bracket in that answer, and that's what we're looking for. Here, 2/3 x is greater than 4. Now remember, if you don't like the way an equation looks, we're a little bit more advanced now. We can actually get rid of denominators by multiplying through by the least common denominator. You can do that on inequalities as well. This way, I'm gonna, again, the only denominator is 3, so that's my least common denominator. I'm going to multiply every piece in the equation by that 3/1, that least common denominator. And I'm going to make that a fraction too, because when I'm working with fractions, I want them all to be fractions. Now, the whole purpose of multiplying through by the least common denominator is that it cancels that 3 out, right? So what's left? 2x. On the other side, nothing cross cancels, nothing reduces within a term. When you multiply straight across, you get 12/1, which is going to be 12. Now to get the x by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 2, and so we end up with x is greater than 6. Give yourself a number line, and really all I need is one with the number 6 on it. I don't care where 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are. We don't care. We don't need those. 6 is on the number line. Give yourself an open circle on the 6 and then read it. X is greater than 6. Greater means to the right, doesn't it? Or if you'll always just solve for the x on the left, he's going to tell you, he's going to point also and say, go right. Now write the answer down as it occurs from left to right. The shading is our answer. The shading starts at 6 and goes all the way to infinity. Because of the open circle, on the 6 we get a parentheses, and we know infinities always use parentheses. This is our interval notation, and that's our equation answer. Let's look at numbers 11 and 12. I'm going to start by getting the x all by itself on the left-hand side. This is just like solving those linear equations we were doing before. When I move the -5 over to the other side, it does become a +5. So now we have 2x is less than 8 plus 5, which is 13. After dividing both sides by 2, I get my x, my symbol comes down, and 13 halves. Okay, we can either convert that to a mixed number if they ask us to. If not, that's the number we want on the number line. Now, if they give you a pre-numbered number line, you do want to go ahead and convert that to 6.5 so you know where to plot it. But if you're making your own number line, 13 halves is fine. Either way is correct. Now, give yourself an open circle. And it says x is smaller than, x is less than. Less than is to the left, isn't it? Or if you'll always solve for x on the left-hand side of the equation, he's going to point. Okay, help yourself out a little bit. So the answer is what you get as you read the number line from left to right. The shading starts at negative infinity and goes all the way up to 3/2 or 6.5, whatever your professor requires. Infinities always get parentheses and open circles get parentheses. There's our interval notation answer, and here's our equation answer. Number 12, I want you to put a star by this because this is one where we get to see that flipping of the symbol. You only reverse the symbol when you divide by a negative number. See, I'm going to start by getting the x's all by themselves. This 4 is going to need to be moved over. It becomes a negative 4 on that side. Now we're left with a negative 3x, my symbol, and 13 minus 4, which is a 9. Now I can divide both sides by a negative 3. Ding, 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 light siren, something which should tell you always reverse that symbol. Anytime that we divide by a negative, you want to reverse the symbol and do it right away. Okay, so we get the x all by itself on the left, and on the right-hand side we get a negative 3. Now, again, only reverse the symbol when I divide by a negative number. Now let's finish it. We need a number line, and you know I keep it pretty simple. Open or close circle on this one. That's correct, closed. And since I solved for the x on the left-hand side, he's saying go that way, right? Go to the right. And even if I read it, x is greater than or equal to. Greater than means it's going to have to go to the right. So either way, you get the right answer. Now read it the way you read an English sentence from left to right. The shading starts at negative 3 and goes all the way to infinity. Infinities get parentheses, and those solid circles get brackets. There's our equation answer. There's our interval notation. On number 13, I don't like the fraction appearance, so I'm going to multiply the whole thing through by the least common denominator, which is 2. So I'm going to multiply the negative 1/2 x by 2. I'm going to multiply the 9 by 2. And I'm going to multiply the 5 by 2. Every single piece, just like before, nothing's changed. So the 2's cancel here, and I end up with a negative 1x. Here, nothing cancels. I multiply straight across. 18 over 1 is just 18. And 2 times 5 over 1 times 1 is 10 over 1, which is just 10. Now get the x all by itself on the left. I'm going to move the 18 over the inequality to the other side. I get a negative 18. So now I have negative x is greater than, and 10 minus 18 is negative 8. I don't want negative x though, so I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1. Ding, 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 light siren, something's telling you reverse the symbol. Anytime that you're dividing by a negative number, this is the only time you do it, reverse that symbol. That gives me the x all by itself on the left-hand side. And on the other side, negative 8 divided by negative 1 is 8. But again, you reversed it because you divided by a negative. All right, give yourself a number line. 8 is the only number I'm interested in, but if they give you a numbered number line, on the 8, we want an open circle because it's an open inequality. This says x is less than 8. That means go to the left. Or if you'll always solve for the x on the left-hand side, he tells you, he's pointing, go left. The answer is the shaded area as you go from left to right. It starts at negative infinity. We know infinities get parentheses all the way to 8. And because of the open circle, close with a parentheses. There's the equation answer. Here's the interval notation answer. Number 14. I need a common denominator on this one, so I'm going to use multiples of my biggest number. 6, 12, 18. All I'm doing is 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3, 6 times 4. Now, do 3 and 4 divide into 6? No. Do 3 and 4 divide into 12? Yes, that's our least common denominator. So I'm going to multiply through by 12 on each term. When I multiply the first term by 12, 3 cancels into the 12 and leaves behind a 4. That's going to give me 4 times 1x, or 4x. 12 divided by 6, or 6 divides into 12 2 times. I get negative 2 times 5, which is minus 10. And 4 cancels into the 12 and leaves behind a 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Now we can solve. See how much nicer that is by multiplying through by the least common denominator? All right, I'm going to start by getting the x all by itself on the left, so I'm going to move the negative 10 over the inequality, which is going to make it a plus 10. We have 4x, our symbol, and 9 and 10 make 19. After dividing both sides by 4, x is going to give us 19 fourths. And again, if they give you a pre-numbered number line, I want you to start off by converting it to into a mixed number, and that would be 4 3/4. That way you can locate it on the number line if you need to. Let's give ourselves a number line. 19 fourths, or 4 3/4, is what I'm looking for. 19 fourths, I need an open circle on that. X is less than that, so it goes to the left. Or if you have a hard time reading it, always remember, if you'll solve for the x on the left, he's going to point. He's going to say go left. Our answer starts at negative infinity as you're reading it like an English sentence, all the way up to 19 fourths. Infinities always get parentheses, and the 19 fourths gets a parentheses because of the open circle. I'll see you in the next video, and we'll finish up section 17.